Hi, my name is Alexia Snyder and I am a graduate student at Queen's University of Charlotte. Today I will be discussing my inquiry paper titled Communication Ethics Involving Companies to Consumers. In the paper, I will discuss Johnson & Johnson's Tylenol crisis, where capsules found in drugstores were filled with cyanide instead of the pain-relieving medicine. Fatalities occurred during the switch-up, and thus recalls were born. By using the method of codes, procedures, and standards in communication ethics, along with gatekeeping theory, I will be able to illustrate how Tylenol was able to ethically communicate their communication crisis with their wide consumer base. So why write an inquiry paper about communication ethics involving companies to consumers? The idea was the first thing to pop into my mind when thinking about a potential topic because communication ethics is very present within the workplace. There is absolutely no business or company where communication ethics is not involved. The communication theory and ethic that I decided to incorporate is the gatekeeping theory and the ethic of codes, procedures, and standards. Codes, procedures, and standards, according to Arnett et al., define communication ethics guidelines by which appropriate ethical conduct is evaluated, protecting and promoting the good of corporately agreed upon practices and regulations. It is simply a business's ethical guidelines that they abide by each and every day. Every company has a set of values and beliefs that make up a mission statement. Codes, procedures, and guidelines could also fit into that category. In this specific instance, codes, procedures, and guidelines align with crisis communication. I will also be speaking about gatekeeping theory. According to Barzilai-Non, it is the process by which the billions of messages that are available in the world get cut down and transformed into the hundreds of messages that reach a given person on a given day. In simpler terms, gatekeeping theory is what the media does each and every day. The media receives a news story, then they decide what part of the story they will share with the general public. Gatekeeping theory is when that occurs and the media decides what they want to share. In the findings section, I wrote about how my personal experience working in the food industry, specifically within retail marketing, has given me insight on recalls. At my past employer, I was seated beside our social media team and was able to write copy for recalls to inform our customers through our Facebook account. Every time we had a recall or someone wasn't happy with our brand product, we also told consumers to bring the item back to the retail store for a full refund. When researching the Tylenol crisis, I learned that companies inform the public of recalls in different ways, such as through television, radio, and now, more frequently, social media. When comparing my personal experience to the Tylenol crisis, I quickly learned that each company has a different set of codes, standards, and procedures that they follow in regards to a recall. In the discussion section, I went on an overview of the Tylenol crisis and how bottles filled with cyanide were discovered in different states around the United States. Johnson & Johnson is the parent company of Tylenol, and how diligent they were to act fast to react to the recall to prevent more lives from being lost along with their reputation. I mentioned how important it is to let consumers know when there is a crisis situation or recall immediately, so that the company's reputation will not be tarnished and people will still be able to trust the brand after the mishap. Rayhack explained how Johnson & Johnson, along with the Tylenol brand, acted fast to be in regulation with their specific codes and regulations to save their brand and align with their company's standard of ethics. They remained ethical and honest with the consumer. Rayhack also explained how Tylenol placed consumers first by recalling 31 million bottles from store shelves and offered replacement product in the safer tablet bottle form free of charge. In the methodology section, I discussed how codes, procedures, and standards in communication ethics, along with the gatekeeping theory, has been very beneficial when researching how the Tylenol case study ethically and effectively communicated with their customers. Grazer explained, organization must recognize the what of the issue generating the reputational threat, as well as the who the involved publics is or are. After the crisis, it is ultimately up to the company to decide what the next steps are going to be. According to Fletcher, Johnson & Johnson spent over $100 million on the recall. Tylenol could have just went to each location of stores where the medicine was distributed and threw the bottles away, but they were ethical and implemented a recall instead. Trankhaus et al. Explained how officials responded immediately by establishing an open and candid rapport with the media and by installing a toll-free telephone number to handle consumer inquiries. Johnson & Johnson recalled the lot to which Zatanna capsules had been traced. The huge question remained if customers would be able to trust the brand again, and thankfully the answer was yes. Trankhaus et al. Also suggested that Tylenol recaptured 85% of its prior market share by 1983. Johnson & Johnson was able to salvage their company along with their Tylenol brand by responding fast to consumers and abiding by their communications ethics that were put into place. So how does a gatekeeping theory fit in? After Johnson & Johnson released their recall, it was in the media's hands on how they would portray the situation. Since Johnson & Johnson remained honest with consumers and kept them in the loop during the situation, the media respected the company and did not make them seem like they did not do their job by alerting everyone. Recommendations and implications. I recommended that a company review their current standards to make sure they align with their specific beliefs and are ethical. There is always more than one way to go about things in an ethical way. A company could also go about the situation and think of it as an opportunity for public decision-making. Johnson & Johnson could form a panel of employees from different departments to talk about what is currently going on within the company during a crisis, then searching for opportunities on how to make things better or more efficient. However, there are also downfalls to each as well. In all, without a set standard, a company cannot be successful. A great example of an unsuccessful situation would be the Volkswagen recall. The manufacturer was not honest with the consumer and did not implement a set of codes, procedures, and standards. According to CNN Money staff, explained how the group falsified U.S. pollution tests by installing software, defeat devices, to make vehicles appear cleaner than they were. Since the recall, their market share has went down and ultimately being unethical has hurt their business. Suggestions and conclusion. Suggestions I would give to other companies would be to view and research future opportunities and past recalls and crisis situations within the company as well as outside of it. Looking toward the future could help prepare a company get in front of an issue instead of always being on the reactive side of the equation. In conclusion, if the codes, procedures, and standards communication ethics is implemented along with the gatekeeping theory, a company can communicate with the consumers and media at an appropriate time to ensure that the incidents will run smoothly. Lastly, here are my references that I used while researching. Thank you so much for viewing my vlog, and I hope that you enjoyed my presentation.